So we are going to go ahead and get started, guys. Welcome to this episode of the Xtra Mile Podcast. We have an awesome guest as always, but today we're going to dive deep into some awesome things that are going to help you guys grow your business, but we're going to be in the mortgage world a little bit too. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that works and how you can possibly find your way in the mortgage world as well. So we're going to get started, and Ed, give me 1 second. I'll let you introduce yourself in 1 sec.
Your success is on the other side of your comfort zone. See, that's the difference between me and those other guys. I wanted it more than they did. I wanted it enough to get uncomfortable. I wanted it enough to go the extra mile. Do you want it bad enough? Do you want it bad enough to go the extra mile?
Ooh. All right, well, we know Ed wanted it bad enough. So, Ed, let's take a second or two, let you introduce yourself to everybody out there and let them know who you are, what you do, and if you want to give like a little quick bio, you can do that too.
Yeah, so I'm Ed Stratton with Stratton Mortgage, a division of First Home Bank. I've been in the mortgage industry for like 4.5 years now. Had incredible growth in that short period of time. Worked all kinds of jobs prior, kind of as most people, like hustled from pushing carts to working at a bank, working in manufacturing, and finally found my niche.
Pushing carts.
Yeah.
Where'd you push cart? Oh, really?
I made the high school yearbook pushing carts.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I worked at Walmart for a while, man. So
I was like one step up Target,
Yeah. We were beefing, Bloods and Crips stuff.
There we go.
So that's awesome because I actually met you before you got into the mortgage industry, in the banking world a little bit. And so, it was kind of cool to watch you grow so quickly like you did in the mortgage world. What do you think? What do you think really brought you the success that you've had in mortgage? Now, we'll go back to the roots of how everything worked together, but a lot of people have attempted to do what you have done and didn't have the success that you have had. So what do you attribute that to?
Some really great mentors early on. So I wasn't the guy out there that tried to go figure it all out myself. I realized that there's people that already have done what I want to do. So if I bond with them, learn from them, a process that might take 10 years, I can go off of their experience and turn it into something that hopefully I can turn into a year or 2 years of success. So really relying on people that have already gone there before and taking that wheel, and instead of reinventing it, just making it a little bit better.
Gotcha. Some 22s with some low pros on it instead of
There we go. I got the 20s with like the big fat tire on it,
I see you out there, man. She needs to get cleaned up a little bit though.
It's really dirty. I saw they were cleaning your trucks down the road.
Yeah, man. Yeah, my guy Wendell. Shout out Wendell from Detailing by Wendell. He does a great job. But yeah, man. It's like I said. It's been great to watch it happen. Mentors are extremely important. Did you stick with mentors that were specific to your industry, or did you have mentors both in and outside of your industry?
Yeah, so I found people that had traits that I liked.
Okay.
They all had to be an entrepreneur or somebody who had really achieved a high level of success. Most of them weren't even in the industry, but they were salespeople. I knew I was going into sales, so I picked people that I had watched build teams and systems, and, asked them to go to coffee.
Yeah.
Bought them a cup of coffee. Half the time, they made a whole lot more money than I made then, so they bought the coffee for me.
Yeah.
Even though I asked them out on the appointment, but just pick their brains. And most people who are successful, they don't mind sharing their story and giving you those tips.
It is really amazing. For you guys that are out there that are thinking about, hey, listen, how do I do this? Go to the person that's killing it in your industry and ask them to do exactly what Ed did, right? Go out, have some conversation with them. You'll be surprised at how much they are willing to show you and tell you. So it's great. I love that. When you do that, the trick is like, don't go with your hand out. I oftentimes advise people not to even say, let me pick your brain, because even then it seems like you're asking for something. But it's, hey, look, I'd love to connect with you, get to know a little bit more about you. Let's go out and grab some coffee and chat a little bit.
And the thing to realize too is, and this is something that a lot of like high producers and successful people know, is that even though you haven't done it, there's something they can learn from you. So you got to understand that even though you're going into that meeting, you might bring some value that they can implement into their business. So there's something for them to gain in it too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing too, right? Like, we know in business, right? One of the reasons why we seek out mentors in the first place is too many people have done this before. Yeah. Like, why do we want to try to, like you said, start from scratch and really rethink this entire industry when so many people have done this before. We're going to apply our own twist. We're going to change some things for sure, but why try to reinvent the wheel when so many people have done it before? So I love that approach. And like you said, people are so willing to share that information. However, understand that you're going to bring value to that conversation, right? So, the people that are in those positions know that they can learn from the janitor the same that they can learn from a CEO. So bring that value too. Yeah, I love that, man. That's awesome. So talk about that, like not just the mentoring themselves, but how has relationships in general played into your growth, and maybe people that you don't really look at as mentors, but maybe still had an influence in you and your business.
Yeah, so I'm a big relationship guy. Instead of being the person that goes out and looks for the next deal, I'm looking for the next salesperson. And a lot of your salespeople don't work for your company. They're your raving fans. They're the people in the community that, they've seen you dive in deep and be a part of the community, and they want to see you succeed, So really focusing on building relationships that were like past the surface level, getting to know people, getting to know their families, getting to know like what makes them tick and the things that they enjoy, so that you can really foster a strong relationship with them.
Yeah, and then by doing so, you find out who has values that are similar to yours, right? Yeah. Who you want closer to you. And I love what you said about, creating those raving fans out there and seeing how they can eventually play into what you're doing with your business. I have somebody on our team at Brightside who started out as a customer in 2014, and now he works with us here at Brightside. So it's really cool. And we had Steph Priest on here a couple episodes ago. Shout out to Steph, who, when she was building her Ignite kickboxing gym, she recruited most of her team members from her client list, the people that were in there every day kicking butt, in the gym. So yeah, because these people are bought into your culture, right? They've chose you for a reason, and a lot of times they're willing to do more than just be your client. So
I actually just made an offer to somebody who was a client of ours. I needed a position to fill. I posted something out on Facebook. They reached out, and they were a client of ours, so they already knew what we were trying to deliver. And it just gives you that comfort level of, if you already did business with them and they know what the model is, what you're delivering, so much easier to know that they know what the expectations are before you even hire them.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about that. Like, I know at least for us, by the time we take somebody through a presentation in our sales process, by the end, they should be as educated in that product and in that system as most of the people that are on our team as far as our consultants, right? Yeah. Because if we're doing a good enough job educating, they should have all that information. Yeah. And I think also, that's an awesome closing technique too. Listen, what you can't buy right now. You lost your job. Well, here, we'll hire you. Let's move the project along. There we go. There we go. No, I'm joking, of course. Now it's really awesome though. I've seen some really cool things happen, but now it's Stratton Mortgage, right? So you've done this in the mortgage industry. Now you're doing it for you, your team, and for your family. Let's talk about that too, how that played out, and then what the long-term goal is, why you made that move in the first place.
Yes, I wanted to build something local, like a local brand that people could all relate to in the local market. So we found a great company with amazing culture that's allowing us to kind of form a DBA and a local brand. So we partnered with First Home Bank, and they're letting us build Stratton Mortgage, our own marketing and branding. I love the branding piece and like having our own logos and things like that. That excited me. You hit a point where like you reach a level where you need something new and exciting to do. Sure. And it scared me.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing was like I was scared to do it. So anytime something really scares you, you got to stop and think for a second, because that's probably something really worth doing.
In my experience, it is, right? Like every time that something scared the shit out of me, and, on the other side of that was a lot of success. So, that's where now I've learned to love that spot, that place of fear, because, I know there's a lot of growth on the other side of it no matter what, right? Even if you have some failure in it, you're going to have a lot of growth from it. Let's talk about this, and I'll bring this question up to you. I had somebody on the podcast a couple years ago who was a law enforcement officer, and he, really wanted to go into business, but the determining factor for him was, it doesn't matter how hard I work at this position of being a law enforcement officer, I can never give this badge to my son. Now, I know you've got a few kids. Where does this Stratton Mortgage play into, the longevity of your family? And, I assume, we haven't dug deep into your childhood or anything like that, but, it doesn't seem like you grew up the way that your kids are going to grow up.
Yeah, it's totally different. So really trying to keep them grounded on like a lot of the core values that I grew up with.
Right.
Because they have a different life than I grew up. I grew up in a military family, so I was the firstborn, so my dad was a lower rank, and we didn't make much really growing up, but I still had a great upbringing because of the values that were instilled in me. So trying to keep those values going, whether my kids will fall in my footsteps, I don't know. I do think because they've watched and seen what I've done and really wanted to be a part of it, and they get excited. They want to hand out business cards everywhere, and like they made me get shirts in their size so they could wear them and things like that. I think it's going to make them be more inclined to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I already see it in their brains, the way they're thinking, and they're always looking at ways to make money or sell something or do something. So that part's exciting for me. Whether they follow in my footsteps in the mortgage industry, I don't care.
Right.
I just want to see them not be afraid to bet on themselves.
Yeah, I love that. That was like, right where it needs to be. And regardless, there'll be opportunity out there that you might not have experienced or other people certainly don't. But the idea of having, your name on the company puts you in a position to either have that available to them later, or you can actually sell something by way of the business at this point or later. But if it's somebody else's and you're building somebody else's business, none of those decisions are on you or in your hands.
Yeah.
So
I really like the fact that with my family's name being on it and just building kind of our own brand, that we could make some different decisions on what we wanted to do in the community.
Yeah.
It didn't require like a larger company to make those decisions.
Right.
It was more of a local decision.
Yep.
And that's huge.
Freaking love that.
There's a lot of people that played into where I'm at right now. So I want to be the person that plays into other people's lives and gives them the same opportunities that I have.
Yeah. Now, you said growing up in a military, did you move around a lot or?
Not too much.
No?
I did move a long way, though. We started in Louisiana, North Carolina, and then ended up in Delaware.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, we're sorry that this is where you landed here in Delaware. I mean, I love it, and I know people pick on Delaware all the time, but I'm not going anywhere, so I tease. But
Delaware's great. You get you can drive the whole state in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Went from going to Walmart and people got like squirrels sewn into their hair to now we're in Delaware,
That's incredible. Every Walmart in every area is just a little bit different as to what they can do for you. He keeps taking shots at Walmart because I told him I worked there too. Look at him.
Great place, great deals.
No, but let's go back to, you were talking about some of the traits and values from your childhood and how that follows you today into what you're doing. Can you talk about those, identify some of those things that you were taught as a child that just, lasted with you and plays into what you're doing each day?
So even as I was growing up, I was always like taught and told to be the best at whatever I do. So, I worked in manufacturing. Was that my end spot? Was that my end goal where I wanted to be? No. But from day one, I wanted to be the best person, whether it was building crates to pack up different kitchen sinks and send them out, whether it was working in the warehouse with shipping. I wanted to be the best at whatever I did. So, that value of no matter what situation in, where you're at, whether it's a stopping place, is to become the best that you can in that position. And then I was also taught that you can learn something from everywhere you're at. I was always taught that you're in this position for a reason because there's something for you to learn and you're not going to move past this until you learn what you need to. And then growing up, there was a lot of value placed on, family, which, as you can tell, has played out in my life. I went a little crazy. I got 5 kids. We're done.
It's cool.
And then just really giving back. Like I saw a lot of generosity growing up. Even when my parents didn't have much, I always saw them being generous in the community with their time and with money. So I wanted to kind of model that in my own kids.
All right. I love that. So let's go back. One of the things that you said about the, when you were working and you were going to be the best, at packaging, best cart pusher, all these things. Can you give some advice to the people that are listening that are in a role, at a job, and not yet in the position of entrepreneurship that they're pursuing? What advice can you give them to help them understand the role and the process?
Yeah, so, you have that end goal. You need to decide what your end goal is. So if, whether you're working at Walmart or Target and you might be a cashier, that's not your end goal and goal in life. So figure out what your end goal is. And then while you're there, pick up whatever skills you can there that are going to help you at your next step. When I was in manufacturing, I learned a lot about managing. I hated the job, didn't like it, but I learned a lot about people and interacting with people and managing that is helping me succeed now. And if I wouldn't really focused and done that, I would have never picked up those skills. So it's just grind through what you're in, keep your end goal in sight, and there is always something to learn. So you need to learn whatever you can where you're at that you can take to the next step with you.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, it's not about, okay, we understand you're not going to love the job, but love the role that it plays in the process towards whatever job you are trying to work at, or the business that you're trying to start, or whatever it is that you're trying to get to. Love the process.
And you got to make your job have some kind of why to it.
Yeah.
If you're just going there and this is my job, I'm just doing it, you'll lose focus. But I mean, sometimes it was simple. I was working in the bank and I didn't really love it, being a teller and being a branch manager and stuff, but I kind of found my why in I wanted to impact somebody's day positive. Every single day I went to work. So that was my why. I went there. I tried to be cheerful. I tried to learn about people so that when the opportunity came in, I could notice somebody was down. I had that chance to make their day better. So find a why in the role you're in, why you're looking for the next one, so that you can kind of fulfill yourself. Because if you don't have a why, you're going to feel really empty every single day showing up to the job that you don't like.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been in a position where, obviously you've been assigned something to do, right? And somebody said, hey, go do this. And you were like, oh, why? And they were like, because we told you to, or because you have to, or because that's the job, or whatever, right? You only put so much effort into that particular process and that task because you didn't understand why you were doing it. But when you can clearly understand the why, what is the why for you at that time? For me, when I worked at Walmart, I knew the power of relationships at an early age, right? And so for me, like every person I interacted with, I knew that that relationship, especially since I'm right here from this small town, could follow me for a lifetime. And to Ed's point, and not to gas Ed up at all, but, I was in and out of that bank tons of other times. And I remember the interaction between him and I because he did ask questions. He asked about what was going on, a little bit more about my business, what kind of, things and challenges that we were experiencing as a company that, was holding us back. And I remember all of that. And I was like, because it was so, to me, it was so out of place. Nobody at that bank or most banks dove that deep with me. They're like, oh, how's your day? Good. And then, got me my deposit slip, or my receipt. And so for me, that stood out forever. And again, like the relationship was born there that we have today. Yeah. It's wild, bro.
I tried to close him.
Hey, listen, man, he would have had me. He would have had me too if I didn't get a call or something, get out of there.
Wasn't even my client, but I tried to close.
Yeah, that wasn't even my main bank. Yeah. So, that was, like I said, that goes to show how long, and that's the other thing, right? He didn't close the deal, but I'll never forget that kind of stuff, the right questions being asked can last a lifetime with people, man. So again, understand that the role that you're in can play a major role in what you're headed towards, right? Like the process is what you want to fall in love with. You're not going to fall in love with the fact that you got to shovel shit right now, but fall in love with the role that shoveling shit plays in your life.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. I still remember that too. Trying to like really dive in and learn about you, and look what it's here now. I think
it's like, bro, I gotta go, but I didn't want to leave either. I was like, hold up, he's about to hook me up.
Yeah. The thing is too, like it gave me credibility when I did the next thing. So I made my move to the mortgage world. You had already had that interaction experience with me, so it automatically gave me a level of credibility with you. So that's the other thing too. When you're in that role, you're building credibility with some different people. So when you step out and do your own thing, people saw how hard you worked, how you executed when you were in that role that you didn't like.
Yeah.
So it's automatically going to give you a level of credibility when 100%. You do your own thing.
Because it follows you. It follows you forever. I got a friend around here, Doug Fair. Shout out to Doug. But, I met him at Walmart. He was trying to buy some TVs for a restaurant and bar that he owned at the time. And, I did everything I could to help him. We did not close a deal, but I gave him tons of information that I know played into whatever decision he made with those TVs. And him and I, we've rode motorcycles together. I've been at his house several times and we're good friends, but it started there.
Yeah.
Now, if I was the typical Walmart employee, it was like, man, I don't know, man. Find out. Look it up. It's probably on your phone. Like, you know what I mean? It would have never amounted to anything. So it's about going above and beyond. Guys, relationships will follow you forever. So please understand that at any point during and through your business, you are only one relationship away from changing your future. Keep that in mind as you interact with people. So, all right. So we dove into the relationships a little bit. We dove into those core values. Let's talk about like, when you were going to when you were cart pushing, when you were going into the factory, right? were there times where, what you had to do to move to the next spot, get promoted, or get to the next business where you were really uncomfortable, really afraid? And let's talk about like how over the time that you've had, how those moments have changed your life over time.
Yeah, so the first time I really got uncomfortable, so I was working in manufacturing. I knew I didn't like the job. I knew it wasn't my end stop, but I couldn't figure out how to get out of it, and I decided I wanted to go into the banking finance world. I had an associate's degree at the time, and I knew if I was going to land a higher level position in the banking world, I need a bachelor's degree. So I was working about 700 hours a year in overtime when I was in manufacturing.
Holy shit.
That's how I survived is that hustle. And I went to school and knocked out my bachelor's degree in a year and a half because I knew I needed that to get a seat at the interview. I didn't necessarily need all the skills from the classes, but that was the box to check on the requirement. Very uncomfortable. I mean, times I was so exhausted, I'd be carrying like a sheet of metal through the plant and like open my eyes and I had walked like 20 feet.
Holy shit, bro.
That level of tired when you fall asleep walking, but grinded through it, and my family supported me. I mean, they all grinded through it with me. So like my younger ones, they'll understand a little bit more than, or my older ones will understand a little more than my younger ones that grind. So got into the banking world, found areas I liked, realized that, being a branch manager, I'm capped. No matter how hard I work, how extra value I bring, it's only going to take me so far. And I knew I was done with the banking world when I got offered a promotion and I turned it down, because I knew I take the promotion, I get this small increase, and I'm just stuck here again. So I knew I was done there. Had a buddy in the mortgage industry, Adam Cornacchio. He's still in it, crushing it, who said I would do great at it because I sent him all the referrals. It's a full commission job.
Yeah.
Kind of right out of the gate. At this point, I got a mortgage. I got 3 kids, and I don't think my wife was working at this time.
Yeah.
So came on.
How old was your oldest at that time?
I want to say he was probably 6.
Okay.
So I have a 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and probably a 1-year-old at the time.
Okay. And now you're going full commission.
Going full commission. So
Holy
sat
shit.
down, had coffee with one of my mentors, and he said, "What happens if you fail?" So I was like, "I go back into banking." He was like, "Perfect. Like you have this opportunity where you can go do your own thing and build and grow. And if you fail, you go back to doing what you're doing right now." So I took the leap of faith. Really glad I did. I mean, scared. I think for the first year, I would panic that I wouldn't find the next deal or it was all going to go away. Even probably like a year and a half, 2 years into it, I still had that anxiety. Like at times I'd like wake up at night, like nervous, like it's all going to go away. Where's the next deal going to come from? How am I going to keep providing for my family? And that's a portion of that fear is good. You got to have a level of fear about what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, there was definitely times on my climb where like I was like, okay, I don't know how we're going to get the next meal or pay this next bill, And it's funny, I heard somebody say the other day, it was like I went from, not knowing where my next meal was going to come from to not knowing where my next meal was going to come from in a way that like he could just order it from anywhere. You know what I mean? So it was kind of this bizarre like twist on that story, but yeah, man, that's huge. So let's real quick take a second and give anybody out there a little bit of advice on somebody who's maybe about to take this jump into full commission or start a business, or maybe they're applying for that promotion, or maybe they're going to get the bachelor's degree that they need to get or whatever. And they're feeling that fear in the pit of their stomach, but they believe there's a lot of positivity on the other side of it. What advice would you give them?
Just bet on yourself. If you keep pumping yourself up that I can do this, it's going to be all right, I can do it. Bet on yourself. Put some safety guards in place. Like if you have the means to do it, build a little bit of savings. Put some money aside. Live way under your means, if you can. So if you're in a situation where you can just really bring all of your budget down super small before you make that move, do it. Drive the crappy little beater car. Like I would buy cars off of Craigslist, and I've talked about this before. I'd buy them, ride around for a little bit, fix them up, and then flip them just to kind of make ends meet. But I mean, I didn't drive around in the nicest stuff. Live way below your means, and it'll make that move a little more comfortable. But the fear is not going to go away. Like the fear is a good thing. You have to learn that fear that you have is what's going to drive you. Like fear of failure, as long as you control it, I don't believe it's a bad thing.
Yeah. It's funny because a lot of people do say that. Now, I always say that, when you start at the bottom, you have a little fear of failure. But there's always fear to a certain degree. But like you said, like, hey, listen, if this doesn't work, it could be a lot worse. I can go back. I could do this. I'm not like, I still can survive. I can make this work. But I still think jumping from that industry or jumping from banking and into mortgage is still scary enough, and that people that are out there and they're thinking about making those moves and they know that it can change their lives, but they're just trying to play it safe. Man, there's nothing in this world worth having that comes easy, right? So everything that's worth having is going to be hard to do. It's going to be hard to accomplish, but you got to go after that. The success is on the other side of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, you said how many hours of overtime you were working per year?
I want to say it was like a little over 700 hours.
Yeah, man. That's why I was like, how did you end up with 5 kids? Did you even have time to have kids?
Yeah, sleeping.
You might have been sleeping. That's hilarious. That's great. So that's awesome. So let's talk about your team now. You're building Stratton Mortgage. How many team members do you have now?
Yeah, so now I have I've got 2 assistants. Just brought my sister into the industry completely green.
That's cool, right? When you can bring people on the journey. Yeah. It's so cool, man.
We'll see how she likes it.
Yeah.
She's just getting kind of used to, working with me sometimes is a lot, very, very demanding. So we'll see,
Sure.
We'll see how she makes it.
I could imagine.
I've got 2 processors, and then I've got a loan officer who works with me, Jay Stout.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like, Jay's got more experience than years I've been alive.
Wow.
So it's a good role to kind of have him to bounce ideas off of, and he gives some great insight and things.
Yeah.
And it's a great motivator to have somebody like that kind of behind and pushing forward with you.
Heck yeah. And somebody that's willing to also like understand the traditions, but challenge them at the same time is really important, right? So that's kind of the cool thing about having somebody with tons of experience and somebody who's like, let's flip this thing upside down too at the same time. So I've got to speak with Jay recently, and he sounds like a great team member, man. You got an incredible culture around you though. Even like I said, before you moved into Stratton, it just seemed like the people that were rocking with you were really rocking with you. So let's talk about that and how you've been able to really build core values with your company, and like the people that are around you see the same vision that you have.
Yeah. So initially, like my processor, Amy, she's younger. She was only in the industry for about 5 or 6 months before she started working with me. And she was the one that nobody wanted to work with because she didn't have all the experience. But I saw drive, like she was fast. She had drive. So obviously nobody wanted to take me because I was the new loan officer who was sending all the files up that were messed up. So we kind of bonded over that. And that taught me a lot of, now when I post positions, I'm not the guy that wants to see all this experience for this job. I want to see your story. And I always said that, like, show me somebody with a story and I'll show you someone who's going to be successful. That person that has a story and has some grit, if I find a resume and I look and I'm like, man, this person's got some grit. Like they grinded through some stuff and they've learned a lot. That's the person I want to hire, because I know that person, when I put them under the pressure and in a tough situation, they're not going to fold. And I feel like a lot of times when you give people opportunities, they become a little more loyal to it. And then you have to take care of your people. You have to take care of your people. Like if they need to do stuff with their family and you can fit it into their schedule for them to go do it, then let them do it.
Yeah.
And then take care of them monetary as you
go,
and make sure that it's not just you living that great life, that you're kind of bringing your whole crew with you, because it's so much more expensive to go hire more people because your staff turns over because you treat them like they're your staff.
Yep, exactly. We always, since the beginning, and this comes, I can't take credit for it, came from Dave Ramsey's book, EntreLeadership, where you refer and treat your people as team members and not employees. Like if you ever hear me refer to any of my team members as employees, I am like talking to my accountant, right? And there's got to be a title on how they're structured in my payroll, but because that's it, right? Because if you have team members that are going home wondering why they're doing this, right, versus going home and knowing exactly why they're doing this, then I think that you're setting yourself up for failure, right? Because a lot of times if they're going home asking that question, it means that they're frustrated with the amount of effort versus the amount of return that they're getting, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me, like you said, taking great care of your people, and not just monetarily, but of course that's important, but bringing them along. Like one of my team members just bought their first house this past week, and it was huge for me. It's huge for me to see it, right? Because I'm so proud of them. Like, look, they and I'm not going to call them out, but they came to me and thanked me for everything that I did. I'm like, you're the one that put the work in, my friend. Yeah. I can't do that. I can't put the work in for you. You had to do that, and therefore the credit goes to you. And so it's really cool to be able to bring some people along, especially when it's family too. So we'll see how that plays out for you guys.
It's fun, like just to be able to take people that become part of your team, and like we like to look at it as a family. So like whenever I'm going to hire somebody or bring somebody on to the team or the family, I'll do the initial interview. And then I let my team that's been on the grind with me and loyal with me
do an interview
before we go to the next step, because they have to be a cultural fit.
Man, that's good, man.
If I love the person and they go to that next step with the team and they're like, I don't really like them,
we're
done. Like we're
done, that makes
because,
sense.
Like you've got to keep that flow going. You got to keep that culture, because culture, like I made some bad moves to some places that the culture wasn't the right fit for me, and I've learned how important that culture is.
That's really interesting, man. So it's kind of cool you said that. I'll talk about like the way that my interview process is. So initially we have one interview that's typically me and the candidate, and now it'll be Dave who's taken over the past year or so. But then we have a second interview that's typically on neutral ground, so we'll go like for lunch or whatever. And then the third interview is actually like a dinner with the spouse. So we want to meet the spouse. Like we want to know, like, hey, listen, we want to know, not only do you want to be working here, but does your spouse want you to be working here? Because if they don't, right, that's going to set us all up for failure.
Something's going to fail.
Right. And, it's easy for the spouse to have an influence on the person when they've never met the company or the person at the helm, right? Because if there's a direction, and the person over here is like, well, why would they do that? If they've met you, if they've understood your why, maybe they could say, oh, I know why they're doing that, versus like trying to be combative with it. The other thing is, and I'm in construction, I've had people showing up to job sites, like stalking the boyfriend down, like, yelling at him. So it's like, that's also what you don't want at the job site. So I'm like, OSHA, come out here and remove this hazard. But anyway, so there's multiple reasons why we did that, but I love the group interview with the team. And I wonder if the group interview with the team would do better on neutral ground, so that it wasn't so overwhelming to the person. And so I'm just playing that in my head over here. But hey, guys, take notes on this, man. So if you're growing a team, or if you're in a company that maybe hasn't revamped their interview process in a while, this is something to take back with you, because things are changing. There's no reason in the world why you're still interviewing the same way that you always have.
Yeah, and it comes down to culture.
Yeah,
that. My thoughts on some, and they might catch something that I totally didn't catch. Like, maybe that person's got me fooled and they're saying all the right things and I'm just eating it up. And then they get on the phone with my team and maybe they're disrespectful to them, or, they treat them different because they're not the boss in that situation. Like we work on a level of respect. Like we're all equal. We're all the same in 100%. This thing. So that was really important to make sure we keep that culture too. And then down the road is going to kind of cut down on some of the drama you could potentially have, because you didn't just hire somebody that people on the team aren't a fan of.
Right. Yeah. Brandon's behind the camera right now, but I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot from that guy. You know what I mean? So like for me, I've been doing this a while, but look, I don't know everything. You know what I mean? And you can learn from everyone. So when you take that position of, I know everything in your business and your team members can't, or even like you said, in a position where you're hiring somebody and they see something that you didn't, everybody's got an input. Everybody's got something that they can add. So make sure that you're keeping that in mind. Anything that you want to give to the people listening just about the interview process, or, bringing on new team members that you haven't already covered?
Yeah, just don't focus on all the typical interview questions. You want to get to know that person. So ask some questions that are going to allow you to get to know them. And and truly learn about their family and kind of things like, keep it all in the compliant world of things you're allowed to ask, but get to know that actual person, try to figure out what makes them tick. And if you've got a team, I would highly recommend, entrusting your team that you've hired for a reason to give some insight on some people you hire. You don't have to give them the end all decision, but I think it'd be smart because they're normally in the roles that you're hiring for.
Yeah.
So they know what that person needs to have. You're normally hiring for a position that you haven't done in a long time or you're not currently doing. So the person on the ground having some insight into it would really be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, man. I'm not going to continue to bring up examples of the way that's played out in my business, but guys, please take note of this. And then let's take it to the next step, right? Now you've got these team members and you're watching them grow in the business. How do you know when to delegate certain tasks to them or to give them more authority to make decisions that right now they're coming to you to get the final say so on?
Yeah, so that's kind of a trickier one. It kind of, it takes a growth to master a basic set of skills, but you're going to have to start giving some people some task and taking a little bit of risk on it. So I was big on my team that if I give you a task to do and you go to complete it and you mess up, almost in the mortgage world, pretty much everything, you can fix it. If I did my job up front and they mess something up a little bit on the way, we can fix it. Sometimes it's a little painful and things like that. But they know at the end of the day, if they mess up, I'm going to own it in front of the client.
Right.
Like it's me.
Yep.
They also know that I don't like owning mistakes that I didn't make. So we'll have a conversation about it. So they're kind of, they're motivated to take some leaps and try some things they may not be comfortable in because they know at the end of the day I have their back. But they're also going to make sure they've got that skill set to execute it because they don't want to deal with me being frustrated because we let somebody down along the way. But you hire people for a reason. If you have to micromanage that person and you're constantly worried about what they're doing, you've hired the wrong person.
Yeah.
You need to let them go.
Yeah.
But you just check in with them. We do weekly check-ins. There's different things that we do, and we'll go through like a pipeline of what we have going on. And by conversations with them about what's going on, you can start to pick up on, hey, they don't really grasp what's going on, or they have an understanding. And then we also have people on the team that have been there longer. And I ask them, hey, how's this person doing?
Yep.
Are they getting it? Do they need some help? Are they picking up on stuff? Because that person's right there with them every single day working, and they can give you some honest feedback.
Yeah, no, that's huge. One of the things that I'll add to that too is, we understand that the people that we have working for us are never going to do it exactly the way that we do it. We would do it, right? Yeah. And I'm not going to keep calling Brandon out, but when he first started, he would say, hey, how do you want this done? And I would say, well, how would you do it? And so it got to a point where he really understood that I trusted his twist on things. It's not going to be the way that Bobby would have done it, but that's the point of this, we have to understand as business owners, and especially people that are in a leadership position in their companies, that, the person that you're delegating your tasks to, right? You're doing that so that you can gain your time back to spend on more meter moving priorities and activities, right? So then understand that they're not going to do it the way that you do it. The general rule is if they can do it 80% as good as you can, then delegate it, right? Because the other 20% is going to be their twist on it in the first place. And that's okay. That's okay. But the more that you empower your people to make these decisions and put them in position, the less fires you'll be putting out every single day because people are waiting for you to make the decision, which is taking your time to get involved and figure out.
The only way to scale and grow is to get comfortable with delegation. And then you got to realize too and be comfortable with the fact that they might be better at it than you.
Woo!
Which is awesome. Like when somebody's like, I brag about my team to customers and clients, like we do the initial piece and I'm just like, look, they're way better than me at this. So if you need this, this, and this is your contact for it because they're the expert in that field. So that's big. I mean, you got to be okay with it and kind of know your role. Like you got to know your role. You're not the person that has to do everything. You've got people better than you at doing those different things. Let them do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's people call me all the time, and obviously, I've mentioned it enough on this show for everybody to know that I own a roofing business. But people call me all the time, and they're like, "Hey, listen, my family member had some storm damage or something like that." And I'm like, "Great, I'm gonna put them in contact with my specialist so that they get the. Oh, you're not going out there? No, you don't want me screwing that up." You know what I mean? This person's a specialist in the insurance claim process. So you also have to understand that part. Like us as leaders in business, we have this intent to help and serve, right? So we want to go right away. Let's go help. But in reality, are you doing that customer justice, or should you have put the specialist involved in the first place? And I'll add one last thing before we move on to the next question. But I had my director of operations come to me shortly after I put him in position, and he's like, "Hey man, I'm probably gonna switch some things up that you worked really hard to implement into the business." And I'm like, you fucking better be. Like, he's like, "Are you sure you're not going to be upset?" I'm like, look, outside of like changing the company colors to pink and yellow without a valid explanation, like, no, you can do that. That's exactly why I put you in position. There's no way that I did everything right. Therefore, things that I put in place have to be changed and improved on. And so I think that, you just gotta understand that part, man. A lot of times people have too much pride to let that happen.
You got to be comfortable in your role.
Yeah.
Just comfortable with the people around you and trust your judgment when you hired them. Like, you hired them for that reason.
Yeah.
Let them grow, let them make it better.
Yeah. If you hired them for them to be a companion while you're doing your job, you didn't do this right.
Just
right?
throwing money away. There's cheaper ways.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right. So let's talk about too. I want to kind of bring in some sales tactics into the conversation. There's a lot of people out there that really are starting business without having sales experience, and so it's frustrating because a lot of them wonder why things aren't working, right? They're like, I have a great product. We have the systems, like everything's in place. I don't know why it's not working. And the reason most of the time is they haven't gone out and sold it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, I truly believe that nothing happens in your business until a sale is made. So I don't care how well oiled your machine is back there. If there's no sale,
there's no product,
there's nothing running. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how important that is. And then maybe if you have some sales advice by way of, and obviously we could take this conversation for hours and hours and hours. Let's not do that. Let's give them some quick, actionable stuff for those people that are just starting businesses.
So you got to be confident. You got to be confident in like in my industry, I call it my craft. Like, I'm confident that I can structure a deal, set up a deal, and give you the best deal possible. And not just necessarily driven to rate. Like, I'm confident going in the situation that I'm going to look at your whole finances and put everything together and give you the best thing for you. And when you have that confidence, people are going to feel it. You also need to make it seem like you're bringing some value. Like, you got to separate yourself from whatever the competition is out there. And you don't separate yourself by talking bad about them. You separate yourself by showing the value that you can bring to the situation. And it's okay in the sales world to make your time seem very important to people.
100%.
Because in the sales world, especially when you first start, everybody's going to kick the tires on you. You're going to spend a lot of time with people kicking tires. So you really need to make people understand that your time is valuable. Like, this is how I provide a living for my family and things like that. Confidence is key. You got to be confident in your product, your craft, whatever it is, to really deliver that sale and get used to no.
Yeah. I think I've probably said it on this show before, but I often say is, if you don't truly believe that your product or service is the best, then you've set yourself up for failure already, right? Like, there's a sales book that I read, and it said, if you don't work for the company that's offering the very best product or service, then quit and go work for the company that does, right? And as a business owner, you never want your salespeople to be in that situation, right? So at the end of the day, just like Ed said, if you have the confidence in your product or service, then by all means, stand on top of that mountain and scream at the top of your lungs, right? So that everybody you owe it to them. You owe it to them. You have the best product or service. What happens if you don't sell it to them? Well, then they're going to end up in the jaws of your competitors who aren't going to give them that great of service or product. So please understand that confidence is key, and getting out there is your responsibility, right? You owe it to them to get out there and in front of their face.
And it's a numbers game. Like, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and the amount of no's you get, the more you're in it and you build that name and things around you, they get a lot smaller. But I mean, I learned let's get to know as fast as possible. And when we get to know, I need to know if this is a no where we're done and it's time to move on, or it's a no because of this.
Right.
And then I need to overcome that no.
Yep.
So that it's just using your time valuable, because you got people that they're going to be a no, and it is no. Like, they're not interested in your product. They're not interested in what you have to offer, and they're not interested in doing business with you. And that's okay. but you need to get there fast.
Yep.
You know, instead of wasting all this time just going back and forth and trying to oversell somebody. Also, too, I know you probably see this definitely in your industry is overselling.
Yeah.
You know, the client's already sold, but you're still selling it to them to the point where they unsell themselves.
Yeah. There's a point where you guys got to shut up, is what Ed's trying to say.
Correct. Picking up when the client is sold and they want what you have to offer. And once you're there, you know, the sale piece is done. Work on building relationships, even with that client. You know, a lot of times when somebody calls me for a mortgage, we're not even going to talk rates or payments. My goal is to talk as little about rates and payments initially with you because I want to get to know what's important to you. So when we get to that, you know, we already have that relationship built. So you're comfortable with me. You've built that trust that, you know, my goal is to take the best care of you because you told me about the 2 dogs you have and you want the bigger house for the dogs in your backyard, or you got 5 kids like me and you need a bigger house. So then when we get into the nitty-gritty piece,
like you, Ed.
I don't know, there might be some.
There are.
So that we're just comfortable with each other. And I find if you, instead of just overselling and just talking all about your product, build that relationship real quick with the customer, they're more inclined to listen to you.
Yeah. And you know, what's really interesting about what you said in the overselling is a lot of times people don't ask the right questions and spend too much time on benefits that don't matter to that person, right?
Yeah.
Like I've had salespeople that focus so much on the warranty and they didn't listen to the part that the house was under contract and it's going to be sold in 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, what the hell do they care about that warranty for if that's happening? Now they might be interested in the transferability of that warranty, which you can spend some time on, but why are they worried about the 50-year coverage and, you know,
when they're out of it in 2 weeks?
Exactly. So paying attention to those details are extremely important. I think asking questions, you know, there's a book up there right behind Ed over there on the shelf that says that's Power Questions. It's a great book. It really teaches you how to ask the right questions. And I think, you know, those things are extremely important. And to Ed's point, guys, the best deal in town doesn't mean it's the lowest price in town, right? So when he's talking about those rates and finding out, okay, it's not always about the rate. I want to make sure that I'm putting you guys in the very best position for you and your family for what your goals are with your home and with this loan, right? So that is the best deal in town. It doesn't mean it's always going to be the lowest price in town, and that's great.
Delivering value versus the cheapest product.
Yep, 100%. So, listen, we could go really deep on this conversation. Do you have any last pointers on sales in general that you want to leave them with? All right, cool. Well, we're going to move on. One of the things that we ask every guest on the Xtra Mile podcast is you've mentioned a few examples, so try to use something you haven't already used, but there's plenty of moments in my life where going the extra mile, going above and beyond, whatever you want to call it, right, really paid out dividends over my lifetime and I continue to see benefits from those moments. Can you talk about a moment where you really just went the extra mile, far above what anybody expected of you, and how that played out into your life, what the return was?
Yeah, so there was a realtor that had a deal. Wasn't my deal. And, you know, I looked at the deal. It was falling apart. So they let me look at it. They got the customer's permission for me to talk to him. I figured out what the mistake was that was made. And instead of saying, hey, come over, I can do your deal, I'll take care of you, this guy's an idiot, he messed it all up, I told him how to get it fixed by that guy and to go to it, and it closed. Because that was the fastest and easiest way to get it closed. You know, there's a lot more in play than just, you know, they were a week out from closing. It was all falling apart. You got multiple families involved. I could have been greedy and short-sighted and said, come over here, I know how to fix it, and we'll close 2 weeks late, but we got this, and you can close. Instead, I showed them how to go back to the person they were working with to fix it. Because of that, I landed one of the larger groups that I work with because they saw that I wasn't just in it for me. You know, I was looking at the whole picture. So, I mean, the return on that, I walked away from a deal that would have been a little bit of commission to gain a ton of commission and great relationships down the road where that person that, you know, the realtor that was on that deal, they've told other realtors about me that I don't even do business with. And I've gained relationships off of that. Just by
so crazy,
going above and beyond. I mean, I was busy. I could have just said, I don't know.
Yeah. That's so amazing, man. And I'm going to try to hit the right button here, but yeah, that extra mile button, that's the one. All right, so what I really want to like kind of pick apart real quick on that, which was great, is you said so much, dude. So one was solution oriented, right? So somebody have you ever called somebody with a problem and they're like, oh man, that's terrible. So what did that's what he did? Like, my man, look, we'll catch up on all of that here in a few minutes. What do I go right now? How do I solve this right now, right? And that's exactly where you went, which I love. The other thing was you didn't say a bad word about the competitor. You alluded to that a little while ago when we were talking about the sales, right? Don't bash your competitors. You know who loses when you bash your competitors? You do. And guess what? The very best thing that can happen when you bash your competitors is that both of y'all don't get the business. But you can bet on it that you won't get that business for sure. Yeah. So I love all of that. And ultimately, man, you had the client's best interest in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you gotta have
and did you even know the client?
No.
No, you just had a minor relationship with the realtor? Or you had a good relationship with the realtor at the time?
They were just told by somebody else to reach out to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, the best interest of somebody you've never even met, don't know. That's what it's all about, man. Most entrepreneurs and business leaders have that servant mentality. We want to help. We use the company, the service, and everything that we're offering as a vehicle or a conduit for us to do that. And I freaking love that. I love that. That was great, man. It was a great example. We want everybody that's watching and listening to be able to follow you, stay in contact with you, watch your continued journey. So if you could, let's throw some social media platforms where they can contact with you, websites, wherever you want to send them to. If you want to give out your address, you can do that too. I wouldn't do that, but yeah, social media stuff and any links.
So I'm not on a ton of social media. Ed Stratton on Facebook. You can look me up, and then there's Ed Stratton Mortgage on Facebook is the business page, but that's the only social media I'm on.
Company website is www.strattonmtg.com. You can check us out on there, get to see the team and kind of my family that's kind of going on this journey with me. Feel free to show us some love. We'd love the opportunity to help you guys. Cool. It's been awesome, man. It's been awesome rocking with you today. It's been awesome watching this journey in the first place. So, guys, listen, we're going to continue to bring high-level guests like Ed to the Xtra Mile Podcast. Please go and follow him. Check him out. Keep watching what he's doing because he's just getting started, guys. Like, it's going to be awesome to watch the rest of this show. So listen, make sure you tune in next time for the Xtra Mile Podcast. In the meantime, please hit that rating button, that review button. Make sure you subscribe so that we can keep bringing you guys this level content. And that is Ed and Bobby signing out.
Your success is on the other side of your comfort zone. See, that's the difference between me and those other guys. I wanted it more than they did. I wanted it enough to get uncomfortable. I wanted it enough to go the extra mile. Do you want it bad enough? Do you want it bad enough to go the extra mile?